So in this video I turned a portrait into a super short film. Let's have a look at it. Top shot, deep stage, and our master shot, happy levitated jumping towards the moon. Beautiful. So this technique is really nifty. I think it's so cool that you are able to take a photograph and then transform it into something entirely different. I'm really stoked with the outcome. Obviously, this technique has pros and cons, which I will explain later on as we break down the individual shots. For now, I want to focus on this shot here, shot 3, the master shot, and really go through the entire creation of the world. So we started with the photograph on the left here. And I went back into the Photoshop file, removed all the post-production and like the sparkles, the glows and whatnot, no background, because that gives me the cleanest plate to bringing that photograph into Blender. So in this breakdown, I'm going to explain you my process. However, if you have specific questions, do let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer those questions and perhaps just provide an extra tutorial. So for me, the best way to bring in this photograph is using an add-on called Images as Planes. It brings it in as one flat plane. However, we need to up the rest, as you can see here, but we want to animate it. If you look at the character, we have the legs bend on impact, like the toes, they push the character up, the arms straighten, and so we need to rig this up somehow, but we need more geometry. So to get that detail in, all those deformations, we need to subdivide the geometry to more than just one big polygon, and then we pretty much are good to rig it up. So I created a few deformer objects here. This is my main controller, but then here's my deformer for the legs, so I could just do the jumpy parts, and the same goes for the arms. So I can just you sort of see how I weight painted it, and that is pretty much the rig. It's really it's a really basic rig. Then I replaced the umbrella as well, because the original had something that looked a bit cheap and didn't really fit into the whole origami world. So I gave it an umbrella that was made from paper. Something is missing. Here we go. Actually, that makes more sense. Yeah. So that brings me to the umbrella. So we have all those swirly elements spiraling around the character, and I think that was one of the crucial elements to just find the style and the tone for this. I wanted to be sort of magical and mystical a little bit, so something had to happen. Originally, I wanted to have this all cloth simulated, and I spent a decent amount of time failing. So let me explain where I failed, and maybe some of you guys can let me know in the comments what I have done wrong or what would be the better approach. So here, I had these dangly cloth elements at the top here. Then I have little lanterns, which I wanted to be more rigid, attached to that, and then attached to those little lanterns I had those wavy floaty spirals that curl around the character. That would be cloth again. So we have cloth, rigid, cloth, and that did play up a lot. So in the end I gave up on simulating the whole thing and just used a noise modifier and manually deformed the whole thing, and to be honest, it looks good. So here's a cool part that is maybe some of you actually missed, and I was spending a significant amount of time on it. The particles actually splash into the puddles on the ground and create little ripples like rain. And I thought it was such a nifty way to create immersion. Like I see the reflection of the character in the photograph character, right, in the 3D environment. And now there's particles coming from this person, and they also interact in form of ripples with the environment. That just all sort of like adds up and gels it really nicely for me. I think that is very important to have these little details there that's just suck you in, and you have always something to discover. And that brings me to an important point. You have to have a vision, like something that you know what you go for, and that becomes the red line that guides you through the entire creation process. So pay attention to the next part, because it's quite condensed. Use everything the set can give you to hunt fantastic shots. You miss out on a lot if you only use flat shading. All this is dead space. Textures give you more detail, but wait, something odd is going on. we have a focus shift from this light up there to the butterfly down here. This gets important in a second. Now the light is on, yay! And I conveniently place the highlight to guide the viewer. If I now enable reflections, wow! The shot is transformed into something new entirely. We actually start on the lamp reflecting on the puddle and then shift focus on the butterfly. Now it starts to make sense. How much more interesting is this in comparison to the flat version? So obviously, once you have the idea, you can come up with really cool shot ideas like this one. So when we saw the reflection here, I could actually tell a bit about the environment. Where are we? We're in a sort of like park situation. It is nighttime. No one else is around. It's quiet, right? And then we have the butterfly landing. And as it departs, we also have those feet coming in then, and we're like, who's that? And it's sort of like, it gives us like a sense of direction as well. We're going from left to right, and we sort of keep continuing with this whole direction of motion until the end of the shot. And you know, there's a lot going on here actually that subconsciously glues everything together. So do let me know in the comments if any of this doesn't make sense to you. What is screen direction? What is the 180-degree rule? What is like film language? What is establishing a scene, and what is establishing the tone? All these things. So don't hesitate to reach out. I try to explain as much as I can. And with that, we are already at the tone of the whole thing, right? Nighttime, sort of after rain, hence umbrella and stuff. We have the magic sparkles. No one is around but us. Slight wind. There's a slight breeze. The moon is rising, but also clouds crossing here and there. We have those lanterns, the puddles, everything. To me, it really feels like Singing in the Rain meets Mary Poppins. It's like, it makes me feel warm inside. That said, I do like walks in the dark. So this is my foreground street. Yeah, this is it. Look at them from the side. There's just the whole set from the side looks really, really low poly. It only has to look good from the camera, really. So, and then we have sort of like a few cubes around here, and that is ground fog. That's just volumetric. There's a volumetric shader in them, so I can just place a few ground fog elements that drift through the scene here, just to give it more atmosphere. Maybe get my background activated as well. Sky texture there, and a massive moon that slowly rolls into place. And that is the environment pretty much. So let's come to the pros and cons of this technique. So one of the major advantages we have here is that we're using a live action reference and we mingle that with our CG elements. So they benefit from the detail and the look of the live action elements straight away. Another advantage is that I didn't have to model. And the rig is really basic. I didn't have to go through the entire 3D rigging thing and cloth simulation and whatnot. Apart from the head, everything on the character is 2D, right? So that is a huge time saver for me. But it also brings me to one of the drawbacks here. It is a 2D plate. I can't just go to the front and expect to see the character's face, right? If I jump in here, well, it looks exactly the same from the front as it does from the back, right? In fact, you see the hair here, where on the back, that is what the head covered. So there's one thing. The other thing is, as soon as you have shots like this one here, for example, I purposefully went very shallow on the depth of field and focused on foreground grass and let the background really just sink in through like a bokeh, a nice bokeh. Because had I focused on the character in that moment, you would have seen it's all very flat. And that is because it is flat. So you have to find clever ways to work with the limitations. And that brings me to a shot like this, where you're just like, hey, why don't we just focus on something that is not the character and have the character just passing by in the background? So that's the major pros and cons for me. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I try to answer as much as I can. And other than that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.